My name is Kirsten Evans. I am telling my story about how I found peace in a broken and hurt soul. So I was born to a mom and dad who were married for a very short time, and they had me and my brother, who was just a year younger than I am. And by the time I was 4, my mom was remarried to a new husband, and shortly into that marriage, he started sexually abusing me. Right away, I told my mom that this was happening, and I don't remember a lot about that. That's one of my very first memories, and something that I have continued to have flashbacks of, and it's very distinctive, and I have very vivid details in that memory. But I remember telling her that he was touching me inappropriately, and she told me that she would talk to him and that would stop. Well, that didn't stop. And it continued every day for 7 years. Finally, when I was 12, I had the courage to tell my mom once again that I was still being abused. And at that point, she made him move out of the house. They were separated, I don't know how long, I don't remember a lot of it, but I do remember that he had moved out of the house and there was a court date that was set. I was in a holding room before the trial, and I was really scared. And I had somebody, I don't know who, but somebody came into the room and told me that what I would be doing is I would be divulging the details of what happened during my abuse. Now, I knew that those details would send a man to prison for life if I were to divulge that, and it made me very scared. And I told him I was scared about that, and he said, well, if you decide that you don't want to share any details, then all you need to say is you're not comfortable talking about it, and everything will go back to normal, and he will never touch you again. And I said, well, what if I do share that? And he said, well, then he will go to prison, your parents will get divorced, you will move in with your grandmother, and your life will be very different. Your mom will be working 2 jobs. He painted kind of a very grim picture. And so when it was my turn to testify, I got up on the stand and I said I didn't want to talk about it. The trial ended. He was not sentenced to anything, and very shortly after that, he moved back into the house. I was scared to be home alone with this man. I was scared when he got home. I was doing my very best to just have a normal life. I wanted to not ever think about this, not ever deal with it, and all I did at that age was just not think about it. And he never did touch me again. And I think that my mom, I want to say that she did the best that she could with the situation. But as I got older and, had kind of like buried that part of my life, like from the time I was 4 until I was 12, I had buried that really deep down and just put on a happy face. I always had really good friends. I always made really good choices. Church was something that was really super important to me, and I had been taught about forgiveness and repentance. And because I wasn't thinking about it all the time, I thought, well, I had truly forgiven him and I had truly experienced Christ's atonement in that, so that I don't have to think about that anymore. Like, forgive and forget was what I was always told. And I thought, okay, well, I forgive him. I got to forget about this. And there really wasn't any other alternative for me. I knew from watching enough Oprah that, and maybe it was therapy, I don't know, but there were a few things that I learned from that. And one was people who are abused will often go on to be abusive. And I knew I couldn't do that. That was something that, okay, as long as I am not abusive, then I'm good. The other thing was I knew I had to tell my husband about it before I got married. And I was able to do that. And we had that conversation before we got married. And then the other thing, most women or girls who are sexually abused as kids, they go on to, they turn to drugs and alcohol. And I also knew that as long as I can stay away from drugs and alcohol and promiscuity and not abuse my kids and tell my husband, everything will be fine. Like, those are the things, those 3 things, as long as I did that, I can consider myself not a victim. Well, even though I did all that, as I got married and had my kids of my own, when I had my kids, things started to come back in just little flashes. And the thing that I've learned is that because I buried it so deep and never really processed the things that happened, it still comes out. It just started getting really hard. And as my daughter got older, she became the age that I was when I was abused. And then she grew up, and little by little, I kept thinking of these things. What if anyone ever touched her? Like, I couldn't trust my husband. There were times where I couldn't trust my husband, and would he ever do that? And a thought came to my head, well, if he ever touched my daughter in the way that I was touched, he would be dead. He would be dead, and I would be in prison, because that is not okay. And then I thought, why didn't my mom do that? Why is my mom living a marriage that she created, that she's living a great marriage and having a great life? I'm the one that's suffering here. And things in our relationship, we couldn't communicate well with each other. I never trusted her, really. She did things over and over that just broke my trust with her. I couldn't let her babysit my kids. I couldn't let her spend the weekend with my kids. And all in the while, I'm not even thinking it's really related to the fact that I've never dealt with my sexual abuse. It's just what it is. And my husband was just kind of like, what's going on? How are we gonna fix this? Where are we gonna, we need work. So like I said, I have a brother who's just a year younger than I am, and as far as I know, he was never sexually abused. And him and I were the only 2 kids, and so our relationship was as close as it could be, I think. As we were kids, we were always together, and things were really good. He got married and ended up having 6 kids, and all while never telling his wife about my abuse. And I had mentioned to him a while back that she should know about it. It was something he was not ready to tell his wife. And so I just sat with that and pretended everything was wonderful. Because if I keep pretending everything's wonderful, someday it'll be wonderful. It was not wonderful, of course. There was a conversation him and I were actually on the phone having, and he had told me that he was going to be sending 2 of his kids to stay with my parents for a week. And he said it very nonchalantly, like it's no big deal. And when he said that, it was the first time that I had a panic attack. I went to a place I had never gone to before. I felt like it was my responsibility that his wife at least knew about my abuse, and if she decided that she still wanted to send her kids there, then that was okay. But I knew that I would not be okay with him sending their kids there without her knowing. And so I told him, you have to tell her. And And he didn't want to do that. And I said, if you don't tell her, I will. And he still didn't want to do that. Well, eventually he told her. And I was going through this, like, that was such an awakening, like such a real moment for me, because not only was he in denial about what happened about my abuse, my mom and my stepdad were in denial about the abuse as well. Like, there was never any question that it happened or not. I firmly believe that what happened, they all believe happened, even my brother. Nobody ever in all of this has ever said to me, oh, you're lying or you're making this up. So my mom was never in disbelief, but what I thought that she felt like it was part of the past and we've moved on from it. And I don't think that she fully, I still don't think today that she fully understands what that trauma, what effect that kind of trauma has on a person forever. I'm convinced that I will never be healed or get over the abuse that happened. I just feel like it's a part of who I am. And I don't think that she understands that at all. The confusion was as thick as it could be. And I said, I need to disconnect from my parents. I need to disconnect from my brother. I need to get help that is outside of this family, because this family has not served me in 38 years. And so that's what I did. I sent a message to them and I said, I'm dealing with things that continue to come up from my past, and while I'm doing that, I need to not have any contact with you. And that was really, really, really hard because now I was kind of on my own, and I had 3 great kids, and I had a husband who our relationship, I didn't know if our relationship would survive that. And I just knew that I couldn't be involved in what they were offering any longer. And it's silly because I think back to it, and I'd written up a huge long email about all the things that I felt were wrong and all the things that I wanted them to change. And I was like, I said to my husband, I'm just gonna send this email. You read it, tell me if it's so good. I spent so much time on it, and I was so proud of it. And at the end of it, he said, they're not gonna change. This email is not gonna change them. You have to be the one that changes. And it was like a light bulb moment that I'm not able to change them. It is not my responsibility to change them. It is my responsibility to change myself, to change my future, and to move on. And that's when the journey started, really. And being disconnected from them gave me a huge playing field to do the work and become the person that I wanted to be, not because my family wanted me to go there, not because anybody was telling me not to or to, but because I knew I had to do it for myself.